Hey everybody, despite popular belief, Christopher Columbus did not discover America. When he saw it for the first time in 1492, people had been living in the region for thousands of years, and many ancient American societies were incredibly complex. So for today's video, I'm counting down 15 amazing ancient American civilizations. Let's start with number 15, the Caral Supe. The Caral Supe civilization, also known as the Norte Chico, is one of the earliest known societies in the Americas, flourishing on the north-central coast of Peru. Dating back to around 3500 BCE, this civilization emerged long before the Inca, Aztec, or Olmec cultures, making it one of the 6 places on Earth where civilization is known to have developed independently. At its height, this region was home to over 30 population centers. Caral Supe is most famous for its monumental architecture, particularly the pyramids. Now, these pyramids, like those later built in Egypt, were aligned with the stars. We know the ancient Egyptians understood astronomy and math, but that was a world away. Did the Caral Supe hold this same knowledge? Well, even more puzzling, the pyramids in Caral were constructed thousands of years before the famous structures of Mesoamerica. So what sets this whole place apart is not just the scale of those achievements, but the evidence of sophisticated technology. They developed methods for preventing earthquake damage, an essential innovation in the seismic region they inhabited. And while they may not have worn white lab coats and handled Bunsen burners, they did in fact leave behind evidence that would suggest they understood rudimentary chemistry for purposes like building construction. Despite wide-reaching interactions, there is no indication that the Caral Supe was a militarized society. Excavations have revealed no weapons or fortifications, suggesting that this civilization thrived in a peaceful environment, focused more on commerce and knowledge than on conflict. Number 14, the Olmec. The Olmec civilization, thriving along the Gulf Coast of Mexico from roughly 1200 to 400 BCE, is often recognized as the first major civilization in Mesoamerica. The Olmecs are most famous for their colossal stone heads and massive sculptures that look like they hold legends of the hidden temple. 2 key cities define the Olmec world, San Lorenzo and La Venta. San Lorenzo, which rose to prominence around 1200 BCE, was the earliest major city in Mesoamerica. It was here that some of the most significant artifacts of Olmec culture were discovered, including 10 of those colossal stone heads. Now, these heads, carved from basalt and weighing as much as 8 tons, are thought to depict rulers, each one unique in its facial features and adorned with helmets, possibly linked to warfare or the famous Mesoamerican ball game. La Venta took over as the cultural and political center around 900 BCE, and besides the colossal heads, the excavators here have found Complex A, a religious site that reveals Olmec's advanced understanding of ceremonial architecture. Complex A, along with the other sites here at La Venta, underscore the Olmec's role as religious innovators in Mesoamerica, influencing later civilizations like the Maya and the Aztec. Their religious practices, including sacrifice, cave rituals, and the construction of ball courts, became staples of Mesoamerican culture for centuries. The ball game, in particular, was a significant part of their society, blending sport with religious and political symbolism. Number 13, the Nasca. The Nasca civilization lived on the southern coast of Peru between 200 BCE and 600 CE, thriving in the harsh desert environment along the Nasca and surrounding valleys. Their society was centered around religious and urban sites like Cahuachi and Ventilla, with Ventilla serving as the urban capital. Covering roughly 495 acres, Ventilla featured ceremonial mounds, walled courts, and terraced housing, making it a hub of everyday life. To combat ever-present threats of drought, the Nasca constructed an impressive network of underground aqueducts and cisterns, ensuring a steady supply during the dry season. What the Nasca civilization is most famous for, however, are the mysterious geoglyphs known as the Nasca lines. These massive designs etched into the desert floor include shapes of animals, plants, and human figures, as well as simple straight lines and geometric patterns. The scale of these designs is pretty staggering. They're the size of sports fields, with the longest straight line stretching over 20 kilometers. Some of the most iconic figures include a hummingbird, spider, and a whale, all of which are only visible from the air, which only adds to their mystery. Now, the exact purpose of those lines remains uncertain, but the most widely accepted theory is that they were used in religious rites. These geoglyphs may have been walked along as part of processions, connecting sacred sites or pointing towards water sources. But how did these ancient people of the Americas even make them? Well, it's highly likely that the designs were created by removing the darker surface rocks, revealing the lighter desert soil beneath. Number 12. Zapotec. The Zapotec civilization, known as the Cloud People, was a powerful and influential culture that dominated the southern highlands in central Mesoamerica, specifically the Valley of Oaxaca. Their origins trace back to the late pre-classic period around 500 BCE, and they thrived until the end of that classic period around 900 CE. The Zapotecs developed their intricate society centered on agriculture, trade, and a religious tradition. And everything Zapotec centered around Monte Alban, the Zapotec capital, which rose as a major urban center around 500 BCE. Over the centuries, Monte Alban became the heart of the Zapotec political, cultural, and religious life, growing into a sprawling city that rivaled other greats, even the Olmecs. But part of what made the Cloud People so unique is their religion. The pantheon of deities reflected the complexity in their society, with gods representing critical elements like rain, wind, and fertility. The bat god, Cosijo, the rain and lightning god, the god of corn, were among the most revered. Religious ceremonies here and even sacrifices were key components in their spiritual lives, and temples and pyramids dotted the landscape here. Local legends also speak of an elaborate network of tunnels beneath Mitla, believed to be an entrance to the underworld. These tunnels were reportedly sealed by Spanish missionaries, and they highlight the spiritual nature of the Zapotec world. According to these tales, the tunnels led to deep cavities within the earth, connecting the living world with the underworld. Number 11. Tiwanaku Empire. The people of the Tiwanaku Empire lived between 200 and 1000 CE in the Titicaca Basin of present-day Bolivia. At an elevation of 12,000 feet, Tiwanaku was the highest city in the ancient world, commanding a strategic position near the sacred Lake Titicaca. At its peak, the city housed between 30 to 70,000 people, making it a major hub of cultural, political, and economic activity in the region. The empire extended its influence over the Altiplano plains and beyond, stretching to the Peruvian coast and parts of northern Chile. But what sets Tiwanaku apart was its remarkable ability to adapt to the harsh highland environment. The basin where the city was built was prone to seasonal flooding due to snowmelt from nearby ice caps, and the Tiwanaku people ingeniously constructed raised fields, or sucacolas, elevated sod platforms that were separated by canals to protect their crops from frost and drought. In addition, large aqueducts were built to channel water, making Tiwanaku a sophisticated agricultural society. Llama caravans, too, also played a critical role, bringing in maize and other trade goods from lower elevations, thus connecting Tiwanaku with a wider Andean trade network. After centuries of dominance, the Tiwanaku civilization began to decline around 1100 CE. One widely held theory attributes this collapse to climate change, specifically a significant decrease in rainfall that caused the groundwater levels to drop. As a result, the once thriving raised field systems failed. While this environmental shift is seen as a major factor, it does remain unclear whether it was the sole cause of the empire's downfall. But what is certain, however, is that the Tiwanaku civilization disintegrated as a regional power, leaving behind an impressive legacy of cultural and architectural achievements. Number 10. Wari. The Wari civilization existed in the Andes and coastal regions of modern-day Peru between 500 and 1000 CE. These folks were a powerful and expansionist empire that differed from many of its contemporaries, though its emphasis on militarism. They were centered around the city of Wari, located northeast of modern Ayacucho, Peru. The civilization expanded its influence over much of Peru, establishing strongholds in both highland and coastal areas. The remnants of this empire, including the Wari ruins and Cerro Baul, offer insights into the military-driven strategies that underpinned Wari expansion and governance. The Wari were a little more overt in their reliance on force, using weapons, fortified cities, and defensive architecture to secure and control their growing empire. The strategic emphasis on defense here is evident in the architecture of Wari's subsidiary centers, which were often fortified. Sites such as Piquelacta, a 2-square-kilometer walled complex, may have even housed military garrisons designed to resist external threats. Their use of imperial-style infrastructure helped to unify the regions under their control, with provincial centers connected to the capital via a network of roads that facilitated both military and administrative coordination. While their military prowess allowed them to dominate much of ancient Peru, their civilization eventually began to decline around 800 CE, likely due to the effects of long-term drought, which lasted far more than the aforementioned dry spell. The depopulation of the capital city Wari and other government centers marked the gradual deterioration of their once mighty empire. Archaeological evidence suggests that as the Wari state collapsed, rival groups began to engage in increased warfare and raiding, further destabilizing this region. Although some cities continued to be occupied by descendant groups, major construction projects ceased, and the empire's political structure fragmented. Number 9. Mississippian. The Mississippian culture, which lasted from around 700 CE until the arrival of European explorers, was the last significant prehistoric culture development in North America. It spanned a vast area from the southeastern United States to the Midwest, reaching into the river valley of states like Mississippi, Alabama, Illinois, and Ohio. This complex and influential society was marked by its agricultural prowess, hierarchical political structures, and large-scale public works. The Mississippians were primarily agricultural, relying heavily on the cultivation of maize, beans, and squash, which allowed their population to thrive. But what set the Mississippian culture apart from other indigenous groups of the time was its extensive and organized social and political structures, often referred to as theocratic village states. Each major settlement was typically led by priest rulers who governed not only their town but also satellite villages, creating a larger political entity and even confederacies. Warfare was common, and there were alliances, and they were crucial in Mississippi expansions and consolidations of power. And central to their society was a ceremonial plaza, often surrounded by large earthen mounds that served as platforms for the temples or residence of the elite. Monk's Mound, the largest man-made earthen structure in North America, covers 15 acres and rises 100 feet and underscores the complexity and ambition of the Mississippian urban planning. As the Mississippian culture expanded, it became a dominant force in North America, but it had already begun to decline by the time European explorers arrived. The reasons for this decline are still debated, but environmental changes, warfare, and internal strife likely contributed to the collapse of many Mississippian centers. One of the few Mississippian groups to survive into the colonial period was the Natchez, who maintained aspects of Mississippian culture and continued to practice mound building and maintain their religious hierarchy. Number 8. Moche. The Moche civilization, flourishing along the northern coast of Peru from around 1 CE to 800 CE, is known for its remarkable achievements in art and agriculture. Spanning the Chicama Valley and extending as far as the Chincha Islands, the Moche state covered a significant portion of the northern coast and highlands of Peru. The Moche were contemporaneous with the Nasca civilization further down the coast. However, through conquests and the acquisition of wealth and resources, the Moche established themselves as one of the most influential cultures. Their artistic and architectural contributions here are among the most impressive in pre-Columbian America. However, the Moche are best known for their huacas, massive pyramid-shaped structures made of thousands of adobe bricks. These huacas served multiple functions, including temples, palaces, administrative centers, and even ritual meeting places. The Moche also built extensive systems of irrigation canals, channeling streams from the Andes to support their agriculture. This sophisticated system enabled them to cultivate maize, beans, and other crops, sustaining their large urban centers. Residential compounds constructed from standardized adobe bricks housed multiple families and included living quarters, craft workshops, and storage rooms. Shaped stone foundations found in some hill slope locations suggest the presence of higher status individuals, though researchers don't know for sure. The exact reasons for the Moche's demise remain unclear, but several theories exist. Environmental changes, including severe climatic events such as prolonged droughts and catastrophic flooding caused by El Niño phenomena, may have played a significant role. Studies of ice cores from Andes glaciers reveal a period of intense rainfall followed by severe drought between 563 and 594 CE, which could have disrupted agriculture and weakened the Moche political and social structures. Additionally, the encroachment of sand dunes and tectonic strain on irrigation systems might have also contributed to the civilization's decline. Moving on to number 7, Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan, a sprawling metropolis in the basin of central Mexico, stands as one of the most influential cities of ancient Mesoamerica. Flourishing during the Classic period from around 375 to 500 CE, Teotihuacan was a center of power, culture, and religious significance. It was the largest city in pre-Columbian America, and it's known for its architectural grandeur. The city's layout was dominated by two colossal pyramids, the Pyramids of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, which frame the central avenue known as the Avenue of the Dead. At its zenith, Teotihuacan controlled extensive territories in the Mexican Central Highlands, exerting influence through a combination of military might and strategic alliances. The architecture of Teotihuacan is marked by its monumental scale. Monk's Mound, the largest man-made structure in the Americas, measures approximately 1,000 feet long, 700 feet wide, and 100 feet high. That scale reflects the city's ability to mobilize and manage a large labor force, indicative of its organizational skills. The most significant deity was the Spider Goddess, a rare female figure in Mesoamerican pantheon, symbolizing the creation and fertility. She's depicted with a fanged mask resembling a spider's mouth. Other important deities included the Water Goddess, represented by a monumental statue, and Tlaloc, the rain and war god. The Feathered Serpent God, later known to the Aztecs as Quetzalcoatl, and Zapotec, associated with agricultural renewal, were also prominent in the city's religious practices. One of the more intriguing aspects of Teotihuacan is the mystery surrounding its sudden decline. Around 600 CE, the city suffered significant destruction, with major buildings set on fire and artworks deliberately smashed. This event marks a dramatic shift in the city's political dynamics, possibly linked to resource scarcity, internal strife, or even invasions from rival cities. Number 6. Hohokam. The Hohokam culture, a significant prehistoric civilization in what is now central and southern Arizona, flourished from around 200 to 1400 CE. They're known for their impressive achievements in irrigation and agriculture. The Hohokam left behind a rich legacy that continues to be studied. Their people inhabited the semi-arid region along the Gila and Salt rivers in present-day Arizona, and the name Hohokam is derived from the Pima language, meaning those who have vanished, reflecting the culture's mysterious disappearance. Their culture is traditionally divided into 4 developmental periods: pioneer, colonial, sedentary, and classic. These periods mark the evolution of Hohokam society from early village settlements to complex urban centers. During the pioneer period, they established their foundational settlements. Snaketown, one of their most prominent ones, was a major site during this era. Situated within the Hohokam Pima National Monument, Snaketown was inhabited from around 300 BCE to 1050 CE. At its peak, the site included 2 ball courts, numerous trash mounds, a ceremonial mound, a large central plaza, and hundreds of residential houses. The sedentary period marked the peak of the Hohokam territorial expansion. Villages continued to grow, and some were fortified with walls. Platform mounds became more common, and the Hohokam perfected their canal systems, which reached a maximum length of over 150 miles. During the Classic period, the Salado tribe, part of the ancestral Pueblo culture, settled in Hohokam territory. This period saw the introduction of Pueblo-style architecture with multiple storied adobe community houses and the continuation of pit houses. Basketry became a prominent art form here, and agriculture diversified with the addition of beans and squash. The Hohokam also maintained and renovated their extensive irrigation canals, some of which were put back into use in the 20th century. Number 5. Haida. The Haida civilization, indigenous to the Pacific Northwest coast, encompasses the rich cultural tapestry of British Columbia, Canada, and southern Prince of Wales Island in Alaska. Known as the Kaigani in Alaska, the Haida are closely related to their Tlingit and Tsimshian neighbors. Their culture, deeply rooted in complex social structures and vibrant artistic traditions, offer a unique glimpse into their lives and legacies. Traditional Haida society was organized around a matrilineal system that divided the population into 2 primary groups, the Raven and the Eagle. This system, determined by maternal lineage, defined social roles, ceremonial functions, and territorial rights. Each moiety was further divided into various lineages which controlled specific lands and had their own leaders and cultural practices. This social structure allowed the Haida to maintain a cohesive society with distinct roles and responsibilities. Economically, the Haida relied heavily on the abundant natural resources of their coastal environments. Fishing, particularly salmon, halibut, and cod, were central to their subsistence. Their economy also included hunting and gathering, which complemented their fishing activities and contributed to their culture. The Haida are renowned for their exceptional art and architectural achievements, which are primarily centered around wood carvings. Their totem poles, carved from large tree trunks, are perhaps the most iconic of their creations. These poles serve as historical records, family crests, and ceremonial markers reflecting the lineage and status of Haida families. Another significant aspect of this art is the transformation mask. These masks, used in ceremonial dances, depict animals or mythical beings that transform into other forms when the mask is manipulated. This transformation symbolizes the spiritual change and connection, emphasizing the Haida's deep spiritual beliefs and artistic sophistications. Despite facing challenges, though, such as the prohibition of potlatches by the Canadian government from 1885 to 1951, which led to the confiscation of many ceremonial objects, including masks, the Haida have managed to preserve and adapt their cultural practices. The contemporary Haida art scene continues to thrive and drive their dynamic cultural legacy. Bill Reed, known for his work in gold and silver, and Michael Nicole Yagulanas, who blends traditional Haida motifs with manga-style art, exemplifies the evolution and global integration of Haida artistic forms. Number 4. Toltec. The Toltec civilization, which dominated central Mexico from around 900 to 1150 AD, left a lasting legacy through their mastery of art, architecture, and military power. From their capital city of Tolan, the Toltecs were not only renowned as fierce warriors, but also as sculptors and builders who spread their influence far beyond their borders. At the heart of the Toltec civilization was a powerful military, organized into warrior orders that reflected both animals and deities. Jaguars, eagles, and the gods Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca were central symbols of their warrior culture. The Toltec warriors were equipped with short swords, darts, and a curved weapon that combined elements of an axe and a club. With these tools, they expanded their empire, spreading their influence and religion throughout the region. The Toltecs are remembered not only for their military conquests, though, but also for their extraordinary achievements in art and architecture. Tolan, their capital, was home to monumental stone carvings, including serpent columns, giant statues, and human and animal standard-bearers. The Toltecs also produced the enigmatic Chacmul statues, reclining figures that were used in religious ceremonies. These artistic accomplishments have been widely admired, and the Toltecs are credited with being among the finest craftsmen of their time. The Toltec civilization unfortunately came to an abrupt end around 1150 CE, when their capital, Tolan, was sacked and burned. The reasons for this event remain speculative, with historians suggesting various possibilities, including invasions by neighboring Chichimeque tribes, internal civil strife, or rebellion by vassal states. Among the invaders, though, were the Aztecs, a rising power that would go on to dominate central Mexico in the centuries that followed. Despite the fall of Tolan, though, the Toltec influence endured, particularly through cultural and religious practices adopted by the Aztecs. Number 3. The Inca. The Inca Empire is the largest pre-Columbian civilization in South America, and at its height, the Inca Empire stretched across the western side of the continent, encompassing huge territories from Ecuador to Chile. With its capital, Cusco, Peru, the Inca civilization claimed divine descent from the ancient Tiwanaku culture at Lake Titicaca. Their history is interwoven with both myth and conquest, defining an empire whose influence reverberates today. The Incas, as the legends tell, were born from the sun god Inti, making them the children of the sun. They believe their first rulers were brought into existence at Tiwanaku, hence their divine connection to Inti. In a different version of this myth, the Incas originated from a sacred cave known as Tampu Tocco. Now, Manco Capac, the first Inca ruler with his sister wife Mama Ocolo, led their people to settle the fertile Cusco Valley, founding what would become the capital of the greatest empire in South American history. To maintain control over such a vast territory, the Incas developed an efficient system of tribute and labor. Farmers, herders, and craftsmen contributed their resources and skills, while the state redistributed food and resources during times of need. This system, despite being demanding, also brought benefits such as public works, food security, and religious festivals that reinforced loyalty to the state. The Incas' ability to control their massive empire was greatly aided by their impressive engineering feats. Roads stretched across mountains and valleys, with the most famous remnant being the Inca Trail that connects Cusco to Machu Picchu. The Inca road network allowed for rapid movement of armies, goods, and information, making it possible to govern such a vast region. Despite, though, its immense size and power, the Inca Empire met its downfall in the 16th century due to a combination of internal strife, disease, and the arrival of the Spanish invaders. The Inca ruler Huayna Capac died in 1528 from a European disease, most likely smallpox, which had spread through the Americas before the Spanish themselves arrived. His death sparked a civil war between his sons, Huascar and Atahualpa, which weakened the empire just as Pizarro and his men arrived. Number 2. Aztec. The Aztec civilization, also known as the Mexica, emerged as one of the most powerful and sophisticated societies in Mesoamerica before their eventual fall to Spanish conquest in the early 16th century. With their capital at Tenochtitlan, the Aztecs created an empire that stretched across much of northern Mexico. Supported by military conquest, agricultural prowess, and intricate political alliances, the Aztec Empire at its height was a dominant force, known for its impressive urban planning and religious practices. Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, stood on an island in modern-day Mexico City. According to Aztec myth, their god Huitzilopochtli led them to the site, where they were to build their city upon spotting an eagle perched on a cactus with a serpent in its beak, a powerful symbol now enshrined in Mexico's national emblem. Founded in 1325, Tenochtitlan rapidly grew into one of the most densely populated urban centers of its time, with an estimated population of 140,000 at its peak. The Aztec political system was some of the most complex at the time, centered around the emperor, who ruled with the support of an elite noble class. The triple alliance between Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan helped cement Aztec dominance. Tribute from these subject states was used to sustain the empire, with goods such as maize, cacao, cotton, and jade flowing into the capital. Also, the Aztec calendar system was equally as complex, involving multiple overlapping cycles, including the 260-day and the 365-day periods. These calendars guided agricultural and religious events, while the 52-year cycle was a period of renewal, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another, maybe even hearkening the end of the world. At some point, though, things became unstable. Resentment among lower classes began to feel the burden of their place on the totem pole. This unrest was seized upon by the Spanish conquerors when Hernán Cortés arrived in 1519. After initial peaceful interactions with the Aztec ruler Montezuma, tensions escalated, leading to warfare. Disease, particularly smallpox, devastated the Aztec population, wiping out a large portion of their people before the final siege of Tenochtitlan in 1521. Number 1. Maya. The Mayan civilization is one of the most celebrated ancient civilizations of the Americas. It thrived in modern-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador, and Honduras, with a history that spans over several millennia. The Maya were not a single empire, but rather a collection of city-states that shared a common culture, language, and cosmological beliefs. At the heart of their society was a deep spiritual connection to the nature of life and the cosmos, shaping their understanding of life, death, and the universe itself. The rise of the Maya began around 250 CE during the Classic period, which lasted until about 900 CE. At its height, the civilization was composed of over 40 cities, some of which housed populations as large as 50,000 people. However, the civilization mysteriously declined after 900 CE, with many of the great cities abandoned and overtaken by the jungle. The reasons for this collapse are still debated, but theories include overpopulation, deforestation, prolonged drought, and warfare that disrupted trade routes and destabilized the region. The Maya were known for their extraordinary accomplishments in various fields. Their understanding of mathematics was advanced for its time, particularly their development of the concept of zero, which was integral to their complex calendar systems. These calendars were central to Maya cosmology, with the 260-day and 365-day cycles used to predict astronomical events. One of the civilization's most intriguing cultural practices was the ball game, Pocahontas. More than a simple sport, this game symbolized the struggle between life and death and the triumph over the underworld. played on expansive stone courts, it was both a religious ritual and a form of entertainment, with the possibility that captains or players from the losing team were sacrificed to the gods, further embedding the game into their spiritual worldview. The Maya believed that life did not end with death, but rather continued in a cyclical journey through various realms. Their world was thought to be divided into layers, with the underworld beneath and the 13 levels of heaven above. The gods played a crucial role in maintaining the balance of the universe, and to appease them, the Maya performed human sacrifices and other rituals. Despite the decline of the great classic cities, the Maya did not disappear. During the post-classic period, cities like Chichén Itzá and Uxmal continued to thrive, albeit on a smaller scale. By the time the Spanish arrived in the early 16th century, though, many Maya had reverted to a village-based agrarian society, but they retained the religious and cultural practices of their ancestors. The Spanish conquest brought new challenges, but the Maya and their traditions endured, and many of the descendants still inhabit the same regions today. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time. Thank you to our channel members.